When I say the word tornado, what do you picture? Probably that classic spinning cone dropping from the sky, right? Well, what if I told you that image is dangerously incomplete? We're about to dive into the tornadoes that defy all expectations, the ones you literally don't see coming.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to shatter that classic cone image. Then we'll get into the tornadoes that are masters of deception. After that, we're going to face the sheer, raw power of the monsters of the plains. And finally, we'll look at the tornadoes that, by all the rules of weather, just shouldn't even exist. So, let's kick things off by challenging what we all think we know. The idea that a tornado is just that visible funnel, that's the very first myth we need to bust.
Now, really, take a second. Close your eyes. When you hear that word, tornado, what's the immediate image that flashes in your mind?
Yeah, I'm willing to bet it's something that looks a lot like this. The classic cone. It's the textbook tornado, the one we all recognize instantly. It looks stable, almost predictable, and maybe most importantly, you can see it coming. This is our mental baseline for what a tornado is supposed to look like. But here's the real question, the one that kicks this whole thing off. What if that familiar shape is actually the exception? What if the most dangerous tornadoes, the truly deadly ones, are the ones that are invisible or hidden, or so unbelievably massive they don't even look like a tornado at all?
And that brings us right to our next section, the tornadoes that deceive you. These things are dangerous, not just because they're powerful, but because they are absolute masters of disguise.
Okay, picture this. You're looking outside, and this is what you see. Looks like a pretty standard, nasty thunderstorm, doesn't it? You see those heavy, thick curtains of rain heading your way. You're thinking, okay, gonna be some heavy rain, maybe some wind, but nothing crazy.
But hiding completely inside that wall of rain is what's called a rain-wrap tornado. In this case, an EF3, packing winds over 136 miles per hour. You can't see a funnel, you can't see a debris cloud, it's just rain. By the time you realize that deafening roar isn't just the storm, it's already too late. And this gets to the absolute core of what a tornado really is. See, the tornado isn't the funnel. The funnel is just condensed water vapor. It's basically a cloud shaped by the wind. The real tornado is the rapidly rotating column of air. So, if the air is too dry for that cloud to form, the violent, destructive rotation is still there. It's just invisible.
Now let's take that idea and just crank up the terror level. Imagine it's night, pitch black. The only light you have is a sudden flash of lightning, and for half a second, you see this, a wall of destruction on the horizon. And then, total darkness again.
This is exactly why night tornadoes are so lethal. You have no sunlight to help you. You're trying to make a life-or-death decision based on these tiny, fragmented snapshots. Your brain can't judge its speed or its distance. Is it a mile away or is it a block away? So it's really no surprise they account for such a tragically high number of fatalities.
And then you have the tornado that just throws the rule book out the window. Everything you learn says tornadoes in the northern hemisphere spin counterclockwise, period. But the anticyclonic tornado spins clockwise, completely backward. It's so wrong that it can fool even trained storm chasers, who might waste critical seconds just trying to believe what they're seeing.
So, we've seen how tornadoes can hide in rain and darkness. But what happens when they're so huge, they're basically hiding in plain sight? Now we're shifting from the hidden threats to the ones so massive, so powerful, that they totally break our perception. These are the monsters of the plains.
Say hello to the wedge tornado. This thing is so incredibly wide, often over a mile from edge to edge, that it doesn't even look like a funnel. It looks like the entire storm cloud has just lowered itself to the ground. And here's the deadly illusion. Because it's so massive, it looks like it's moving in slow motion or not at all. In reality, it could be barreling toward you at 50 miles per hour.
Now look at that giant wedge and try to wrap your head around this. It might not be just one tornado. The most violent ones are often what we call multi-vortex. Hidden inside that main circulation are 2, 3, sometimes 5 or more smaller, incredibly intense tornadoes called suction vortices.
This is why tornado damage can look so bizarre and random. You see one house completely wiped off its foundation, while the one right next door is barely touched. That's the work of these vortices. They're like mini tornadoes on steroids, creating pockets of extreme wind that pop up and disappear in seconds, leaving behind this chaotic, almost surgical destruction.
But even rarer, and maybe even more terrifying, is when a storm becomes so powerful, it spawns two completely separate, violent tornadoes at the same time. I'm not talking about little vortices inside a bigger one. I mean 2 fully independent EF4s side by side chewing up the landscape on parallel tracks.
Someone once described watching them as seeing predators hunting in tandem, and I honestly can't think of a more chillingly perfect description. It stops feeling like just a weather event. For anyone on the ground, all your escape routes just vanished.
Okay, for our last section, we're going to dive into the truly weird, the tornadoes that, according to all conventional logic, simply shouldn't exist. This is where nature just seems to completely break its own rules.
And nothing captures that better than this quote from a firefighter who came face to face with a fire tornado. Quote, "You realize you're not just fighting fire anymore. This is what happens when 2 different kinds of natural disasters collide to create something new and something absolutely terrifying."
What is so wild about fire tornadoes is that they don't need a thunderstorm. They don't need moisture. They don't need any of the normal ingredients. All you need is the intense heat from a massive wildfire. We're talking 2,000 degrees, creating a powerful updraft. Then, the surrounding winds give that rising column of air a little spin. It tightens up, and suddenly you have a swirling vortex of flame, with winds strong enough to be rated on the tornado scale.
Okay, so from fire, let's jump to the complete opposite, ice and altitude. Scientists have actually documented a tornado forming way up in the Himalayas at over 12,000 feet. Just think about that environment for a second. The air is thin, it's freezing cold, it's bone dry. It is the absolute last place on Earth you would expect a tornado to form. And yet, it did.
And if that wasn't weird enough, tornadoes have been confirmed forming in the middle of blizzards, with temperatures well below freezing. They're sometimes called snow-nados. A tornado and a blizzard. It just doesn't compute, right?
And that's really where this whole journey leaves us. We've seen that tornadoes can be born from rain, from darkness, from fire, from ice. It proves that the classic image we all carry around in our heads is just one tiny piece of a much bigger, much wilder story. So it leaves you with this one big question, right? If our understanding of something as fundamental as a tornado is this incomplete, what other forces of nature are we completely underestimating?